you want to know the real meaning of the four beasts of Daniel 7, this is where you're going to find it. You've come to the right place. Hi, my name is Jeff Ferris. I've studied the Bible for 40 years. I was a pastor of a church for 7 of those years. I've written 3 books. Let me show you some of those real quick because you can learn a lot. God's Economy, the Tithe and New Testament Giving. In this book, I study the tithe all the way from the book of Genesis, all the way through the Old Testament, through the law, through the prophets, into the New Testament, beyond the Bible and into the church, from voluntary giving to mandatory tithing, the whole history of the tithe, and God's, the mind of Christ, the mind of God, on how that was used and how God wants to use the resources that we have to help others. And not to rob the flock, not to rob the congregation so you can buy an $80,000 organ for your church. God's Economy, the Tithe and New Testament Giving, you can find it on Amazon. All my books you can find on Amazon. You can find them on Barnes & Noble. Google them on the internet, you'll find them. Next book I wrote was Ruth, a living parable of Jesus Christ. And there's a whole lot more to the book of Ruth than you would think. It's more than a love story. It's a story of tragedy, it's a story of despair, it's a story of hope, it's a story of love, it's a story of restoration, and beyond that, it's probably one of the most prophetic books in the Bible. When you get into the names of these people and what they mean, it'll blow you away. The book will take you from the Garden of Eden to the Garden of Gethsemane. It'll take you from the Battle of Jericho to the Second Coming of Christ, all packed in 4 little chapters in the book of Ruth. Ruth, a living parable of Jesus Christ, by myself, J.C. Ferris, again available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And in this book, in my latest, When We Are, where are we? Know where we are. Do we know when we are? When we are, a logical assessment of Bible prophecy, the end times, and the second coming of Christ. And today from this book, we're going to learn the real meaning of the 4 beasts of Daniel 7. Biblical prophecy is probably one of the most, oh my gosh, what do you do? I mean, you can't, the scholars try to discount it. They'll take a book like Daniel and say it was written at a later date to try to discount Bible prophecy, only to find out that that later date's not going to work because the prophecy that Daniel had written refers to a time even later than that. And that's what we're looking at here. The real meaning of the 4 beasts of Daniel 7. If you're familiar with the traditional interpretation of these 4 beasts, and you'll find this in most commentaries, you'll find it taught by most Bible teachers, the biggest names out there, David Jeremiah, Robert Jeffress, some of the big ones, J. Vernon McGee. And this was a pretty good interpretation for a while, actually, but it's wrong. Okay, what they've done is they've taken Daniel chapter 2, where the vision of Nebuchadnezzar of the great image with the head of gold and the chest of arms of silver, the belly and thighs of bronze and the legs of iron and the feet and toes of iron and clay, which mean Babylon, head of gold, Medio-Persia, chest and arms of silver, Greece, the Greek Empire, the belly and thighs of bronze, and of course Rome for the legs of iron, and divided Rome, the divided Roman Empire for the feet and toes of iron and clay. About 200 AD, a man named Hippolytus decided, it was a pretty good assessment, that the head of gold is the same as the winged lion of Daniel chapter 7, and that the chest and arms of silver is the bear. And you've got a pretty good rationale for it, because the Medes were not as powerful as the Persians, so they said that the Medes were the lower side of the bear. and that the Persians were the raised side of the bear, which kind of makes sense. And then you have this four-headed leopard with the four wings, and they say that's Greece because the wings show how fast that empire spread. Alexander the Great conquered a big chunk of the known world at that time in a pretty good pace. And the four heads would represent the four generals who took over his empire after he died. And then you have Rome as the legs of iron. I mean, yeah, this is representing Rome as the legs of iron, and of course the 10 horns, the feet and toes of iron and clay. And it makes pretty good sense. It's a pretty good model. But guess what? It's not the right one. It's not the model. And here's the problem that you have with Daniel. See, Daniel's not going to tell you about these four kingdoms. Let me move these out of the way. About these four kingdoms, which we know what they are: Babylon, Medio-Persia, Greece, and Rome, and then divided Rome. And then he's going to say that in the days of this part here, there's going to be this rock cut out without hands. It's going to strike this thing at the feet and toes. The whole image is going to fall down, break into pieces, be driven away by the wind, and this rock is going to come up and take over the whole world, and that's the kingdom of God. That's Christ coming. So what we have here is an overview of world history written from 600 BC. That's why I love my Bible. That's why I'm a Christian. That's not the only reason, because it just doesn't stop there. It keeps on going with more and more and more and more, and that's what we're going to learn today. Babylon was the head of gold. Medio-Persia, Greece, Rome. How do we know this? Okay, well, Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar he's the head of gold. Right there in Daniel chapter 2. You can read it. Medes and Persians in Greece. Well, Daniel chapter 5 tells us that the Medes and the Persians overthrew Babylon. So we got that right there in the Bible, right there in the book of Daniel. Greece overthrows Persia. Daniel chapter 8, the ram and the he-goat vision. And it tells you the he-goat is Greece, right? The ram is Persia. And Greece beats up Persia. So Greece is next. It doesn't tell you about Rome, though. That's the crazy thing. We know this from history. We know that Rome took over, and we know that Rome divided. Daniel doesn't give us that information. But what he does do, and this is what we're going to learn today, just like he did with the Medes and the Persians, Daniel chapter 8, he focuses in on them a little more. And there are other places in Daniel where it focuses in on the Greek Medes and the Persians a little more. He was in Babylon. There's a lot on Babylon in the book of Daniel, a lot on Babylon in other places in the Old Testament, but nothing at all on Rome, right? Wrong. Because what Daniel does is he focuses in. And what he's going to do with these four beasts is he's going to focus in on those legs of iron and those feet and toes of iron and clay. You are about to learn just how real this Bible is, and just how real this world you're living in is. It's not, we evolved from apes. Nothing like that at all. Nothing like that at all. You need to read my book. I got all this stuff in here, even evolution's in here. I got all kinds of stuff in here. In this book you can see charts, timeline charts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you when we are on the timeline of God. Prophecy past, we're here. Prophecy future, how close are we to the end? The teaching of evolution, you'll find out, is part of what Daniel, well not Daniel, Paul in 2 Thessalonians calls the strong delusion. So here we have the Roman Empire. I hope that comes out good. The Roman Empire. All right. What does Daniel's vision say about Rome? What does it say about Rome? What does it say about the lion? What does it say about the lion? The lion in Daniel 7, verse 4. The lion has its wings plucked up. It's lifted from the ground. It's made to stand on its feet like a man, and a man's heart's given to it. So, the lion is Rome. Hard to believe, huh? Not really. Not really. Oh my gosh. Rome began as a city with a king. And about the time of Daniel, it became a republic. It grew. And it was run by a senate. Well, by about 50 BC, Rome, this is Rome, this whole thing is the Roman Empire. In about 44 BC, Julius Caesar decided, I'm going to be dictator perpetuo. That means dictator for life. And it's from that point forward, Caesar, not the Senate, was in charge of Rome. So you have standing up on his feet like a man, the wings are plucked up. If the Senate is represented by the wings, the driving force of this empire, they were plucked up, made to stand on his feet like a man. Rome. But something else happened here. It's never happened before or since anywhere in the world. Because it was in the Roman Empire, in a little place over here, that God came into the person of Jesus Christ. A new spirit had come, and with it the new man. Rome is the legs of iron. Marking the beginning of the division, Roman Emperor Constantine moved the capital to Constantinople. And what happened after that was the eastern part of the empire began to rise up, risen on one side. The western part of the empire began to decline. The Byzantine Empire, the bear, I keep thinking they're over there, marks the beginning of the divided kingdom of those legs of iron and feet and toes of iron and clay, the Byzantine Empire. We're moving forward through history. This is what Daniel does, from the head to the chest, from the chest to the belly and thighs, from the belly and thighs to the legs, from the legs to the feet and toes, from the feet and toes to the second coming of Christ. He doesn't stop there. He focuses in. Now we're focusing in on those legs of iron. Rome is past. Now it's the bear. That's next. The bear is the Byzantine Empire. 3 ribs in his mouth. What does that represent? Well, it could represent the area that the Byzantine Empire covered at that time, which would have been Turkey or Anatolia, Greece, and Rome. 3 ribs. Or, and I kind of like this one because the Byzantine Empire really hasn't stopped. Its influence has continued throughout history. Early on, you would have had Turkey, you would have had Greece, and then when the Ottoman Turks took over, they said Moscow was the 3rd Rome, Moscow. So Russia could be. 3 ribs in its mouth. I think we have some pretty good ideas there for that. Yeah. What happens next? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, what happens next? Swiftness and unpredictability describe the leopard, but also of the rapid advance of Islam. Under the Rashidun, the first 4 caliphs of Islam, Muslims gained territory all the way to Egypt. They started off, remember, with Muhammad in the Arab Peninsula, but under the Rashidun, made it all the way to took all of Egypt, went all the way up to the Black Sea, took over all of Persia within 40 years. 40 years, that's the Rashidun, but the Rashidun was only the first of, guess what? Yes, 4 heads, 4 lines, 4 kingdoms of Islam. The next one was the Umayyad dynasty, Umayyad. They took Islam all the way up into Spain. They were checked by Charles Martel. And Charles Martel is going to be the grandfather of Charlemagne, who will be the first emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, coronated by the Pope. The Umayyad Empire, or the Umayyad dynasty, was overthrown by another dynasty called the Abyssinian, the Abbasids. And they brought Islam. They lasted 500 years, by the way, the Abbasid Empire. Brought it into the golden age of Islam, where we get the math and the art and that sort of thing. But they didn't last. They were overtaken by Islamic kingdom number 4, the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire, guess what? They're going to take us all the way into the 20th century. Into the 20th century, because they didn't go out until after World War I. World War I ended the Ottoman Empire. Okay, now we're at this crazy, different beast. You're learning? History's moving forward, moving forward. This is Daniel's prophecy. Daniel said this was going to happen. He said it was going to happen. 4th beast. If you know the book of Daniel, you read it, read Daniel chapter 7, you're going to find out that this guy here is going to take over the whole world. This guy is going to take over the whole world. When did that start? 1492. 1492. Spain. Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But it wasn't just Spain. It was Britain. It was France. It was the Netherlands, the Dutch. It was Portugal. And yes, guess what? We're heading towards 10. 10 horns on this thing. And there were 10 European nations that took over the world. Let me get those down for you if I can find them. I might forget. Okay. Back here in my book. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands, France, Britain, Sweden, Denmark, Norway. They were combined as one at that time. Belgium, Germany, and Italy. 10 nations out of the fourth beast that took over the world. Okay? Well, that takes us to where we are today. We are after those 10 kings that took over the world, and just before this little horn who's going to rise up after them, and he's going to be the next world leader. Now you know the real meaning of Daniel chapter 7 and the 4 beasts. If you want to know more, Daniel chapter 9 has some interesting things to look for too. Get this book, When We Are, A Logical Assessment of Bible Prophecy, the End Times, and the Second Coming of Christ. And you'll know exactly where we are on the timeline of God, and you might be able to prepare for the next event in Bible prophecy. Thank you.